Hello and welcome to this episode. In the previous video, I showed you how to use the Python interpreter as a REPL where you had an interactive session. You type your command, the interpreter executes the command, and it prints the output immediately. Now, because that is not a very productive use of your time, and once you begin to use Python seriously, you will not be using it as a REPL. This video is going to show you how to write your program statement in a file and be able to pass that file to the Python interpreter, which will then read your code line by line and execute them. One thing you need to remember is that what distinguishes Python from other programming languages is the fact that Python uses an interpreter instead of a compiler. So languages that have compilers work this way. So you write your program statement, that is your source code, and then you pass it through the compiler, which compiles your statement from head to toe, and it gives you an executable that you can run on your operating system. Python doesn't have a compiler, rather it uses an interpreter. So what happens is you start the interpreter and then you give it the file that you want it to execute, and then it's going to take your program statement line by line and execute them immediately. One disadvantage with this is that if there is an error deep down in your program statement, you will not know it ahead of execution. It will actually execute everything until it gets to that point where it fails. If it was a compiled language, then you will catch these errors before you actually even get your executable. But Python is also beautiful in so many ways, especially when it comes to expressiveness and how you can achieve powerful things with few lines of code. It has a very sweet syntax and it is very easy for everybody to understand. It is matured. It has a lot of libraries out there for doing wonderful things. So I believe you are going to love it. Now, before I show you how to put your program statement in a file, I'm going to recommend that you install Visual Studio Code. Note that this is Visual Studio Code, not Visual Studio. So they are two different things. Visual Studio is a complete, heavy IDE from Microsoft for working with the Microsoft technologies and programming languages. But Microsoft has also released a text editor called Visual Studio Code. And just in case you want to download it, you can go to code.visualstudio.com and then you click on the download button right here. Once you download it, you have a powerful text editor with syntax highlighting for different programming languages out there, and this is a very beautiful text editor that I'll recommend for the rest of this course. So you can pause and download Visual Studio Code, install it on your computer before you continue. But I already have it installed, so I'm going to continue from here. So I'm going to create a file in which we are going to put our Python statement, our program statement, okay? And the requirement is that the extension of your file should be .py, as in Python, the py that precedes the spelling of Python. Okay, so I'm going to create a file because I'm on a Macintosh operating system. I can do that by typing touch. I want to call my file app.py. Okay, so if I list the content of my directory, you see that aside my virtual environment, I also have app.py here. If you're on Windows, then you might have to open Visual Studio, create a new file, and then save it as app.py. But if you are on a Macintosh or a Linux computer, then you can use the touch command to be able to create the file on the command prompt. So I'm going to open Visual Studio in this folder, and this is Visual Studio. So once you open it, it shows you some welcome page and a lot of stuff. You can always close that. And if you have some plugins installed, they also show you their own things. But what I'm interested in here is this file called app.py. So in this file, I'm going to do the same thing we did in the previous video where we printed to the world that we are now learning Python. Okay, so if you remember the command for printing, it is print, and then you put in quotes what you want to show on the screen. So I said, hello world, I am now a Python programmer. And we also want to print that we are learning deep learning. So hello deep learning. Once you've done this, you have to save your file, and then you can go to your command prompt and make sure you are in the folder where the file containing your Python statement is accessible. So in my case, if I do pwd, you can see that I'm in the tutorial folder. And if I do ls, you can see that the app.py file is here. So how do I get this to run? The way to get this to run is to invoke the Python 3 interpreter and tell it to execute app.py. So note the difference between this command and what we did previously. Previously, we just typed Python 3 and we hit enter. When you do that, the Python interpreter knows you want to use it as a REPL because you didn't give it any file containing Python statements to execute. But if you do Python 3 app.py or whatever name you give to your file.py and you hit enter, you can see that the Python interpreter goes through your code line by line. So the first line, let me increase the font. And sorry, I didn't do it earlier. So it goes through the code and it executed line 1, which said print hello world, I'm now a Python programmer, and line 2, which said print hello deep learning. So if you come here, you can see that in the output it has hello world, I'm now a Python programmer, and then hello deep learning. So this is basically how to put your Python code as statements in a file, and then you can start a Python interpreter and ask it to read the statement in the file line by line and execute them for you. So if you have any questions, don't forget to write them in the comment, and I'm going to attend to them as soon as possible. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.